Welcome to episode 5 of the Take Two podcast. Today we are going to be touching on Severance responses from last week because we had a lot of feedback from that episode. We are then going to rank our favorite Steven Soderbergh films, as well as discussing some recent film and TV news like the super popular and instantly beloved Snow White, as well as the UK show sensation Adolescence. So if none of that sounds interesting to you, just keep watching because we need the viewer time to be up. But if you are looking for a fresh film and TV podcast community, you can find a home with us and help us grow. We hit our 10 sub goal last week. We got to 13, my lucky number. So hopefully we never move off of that, even though we are aiming for 25 now. So if you're not subbed yet, but you somehow found our channel, you're obligated to subscribe to us or 10 years of bad luck. I don't make the rules. Oh, also, if you've made it this far, please hit the like button. If you've ever enjoyed anything we've made, hit the like button. We need likes to help us with the algorithm. And even if you dislike our podcast or all the upfront shilling right now, go ahead and just hit the like button anyways. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. All that is out of the way. Oh, by the way, I'm Sam, co-host Kenny, and we're film and TV fanatics. So we are going to do a little bit of housekeeping and what we missed from last week. And it's really just some Severance follow-up. So had a lot of conversations about the dynamic of outies versus innies as the season ended, and sort of the difference between season 1 and season 2 and potentially where season 3 is going. So I've got a few thoughts that I've heard from other people, but do you want to comment on any of that to start?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I did get confirmation that the IVF clinic that Mark and Gemma visited was run by Lumen. Also, the blood drive, which they met at, was also apparently like a Lumen joint. So there's just like a lot of things now around, was their entire relationship just somehow fabricated by Lumen in order to create this. I did also see a lot of other people. I think I actually am in the minority in terms of liking the Miss Cobell episode. A lot of people did actually have a lot of issues with it. I still think it's good, but a lot of people that I heard from Sam really like echoed.
That's good. I don't know what's going on in the public, so whenever you come back to me and say, okay, I think you might be right about this, or at least my opinion is validated, I feel less stupid. So thank you.
You're welcome. Something else I thought was really interesting is I was actually listening to a podcast with David Lindelof, who is the creator of Lost, and I know that you talked a lot about Lost last week.
My favorite show.
And he loves Severance. He's really enjoyed it, and he has a theory about there's the scene in Millions Nurturable where they ask Mark and Helly to show them their belly buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a theory about this because how do you refer to a belly button, Sam? Like, what are the two types of belly buttons?
Oh, I see. The outie and the innie. Okay. That's actually pretty funny.
So he has kind of a funny theory that the innie versions of themselves all have innie belly buttons, and the outside versions of them all have outies. So I thought that was totally off the cuff and wild.
That's
so
very
thanks
funny.
For that, David.
That's very funny. That's funny. Good to hear he's spending his time wisely.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard from a friend that said there's this theory or podcast they were listening to that said the outies versus innies, specifically the innies in the first season, because they're really young, only like a year or 2 years old technically, is technically like childhood. And then season 2 is them in like adolescence or teenage years. And you can see that in like their maturity and how they start to rebel and stuff like that. And that apparently the final season is going to be them entering adulthood. And that's why we see personality shifts with the innies that feel pretty extreme because their lives are accelerated down there. So it seems.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. The other one that we did get confirmation on this week was whether or not it's Helena Egan or Helly R at the end.
Yes.
And was it Adam Scott or was it Ben
It was,
Stiller who was
I think
like,
it
I
was
don't,
Adam Scott.
yeah, he was like, it's Helly R. I don't know why people don't think it's Helly R. So I was a little bit disappointed. I thought it would have been a fun twist if it is Helena Egan. We'll have that tweet in perpetuity if for whatever reason in season 3
Yeah,
that's not the case, and we
if
can.
they change something. Last thing I want to touch on from Severance. It's funny how shows go, right? Shows are different than movies, and that a movie might come out and be a blockbuster and be the talk of the summer for 3 months, while like a
Right.
show has all this hype, but maybe not necessarily a bunch of competition. That's why I think Severance is like, even though it's great, I think it is a little bit prisoner of the moment because there's nothing else piquing our interest at the time in the film world or the TV world. So it's like all of our concentration is going into this show.
Yeah.
So it is funny that it feels like a week later and like all the conversation of Severance just seems to have died out. It's like, okay, what's next? And that is the difference
Right.
sometimes between TV and film. That's not even what I wanted to say. That was just a separate rant. I also heard probably the most feedback or people I talked to that listen to the podcast about Mr. Milchek. He seems to be popular consensus. Everyone likes him.
Yeah.
I did have a friend.
He's a man of the people.
He's a
Sam.
man of the people.
He's a man of the people.
I did have a friend who watched the show who said he doesn't find him sympathetic at all in the way that we sort of do. He said like he found our conversation odd about how I feel validated still in our conversation in that I feel like he's straddling the line and unsure of which side to go or how to act. And I think that's evident by, he receives that picture of himself, like he's supposed to look like the Egans. They kind of like blackface it, and it's really weird. And he's like clearly offended by it, and I think he's been offended by enough things that like any employee in any situation, he's just starting to get rattled. So I stand by that. But it was interesting what my buddy said. He said, "Is it just his management style that's different?" And that's why we view him as sympathetic. Where like Cobell was super strict and he's more, how can I get these people to do their work? Ooh, what if I just try and make them happy? Will that work? And it doesn't seem to work either. And so do we just see his management style as an extension of his personality? So food for thought. What do you think about that right off the bat?
I still don't think that he's as much of a creature of the machine as Cobell was. Like, Cobell would have never told young Karl Marx, I totally forgot his name now, to ingest feculence. So
yes,
I think I think that I'm gonna stand by that phrase of his and say I do think that there's something more there. I think that he is he's developing. He still is trying to be a company man, but I think that we're going to see quite a turn from him in season 3.
Okay, so your prediction is final season, we might get the Kylo Ren turn at the end, or the Darth Vader turn per se.
Don't even bring up Kylo Ren in front of me right now.
Okay,
but I actually, my big theory is that he's going to be like Milchek will be how Helly and Mark somehow escape the severed floor.
Interesting. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. So that concludes our little Severance recap. Let us know if you have any responses to anything we said there, and we can always keep the dialogue going. Always happy to talk about Spider-Man as well, specifically Tobey Maguire, if anyone ever wants to bring that up, because we are a Spider-Man first, Tobey Maguire first podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move into our next segment. What's news? 2 big things I want to talk about. Want to get your feedback on here, Kenny. First, Snow White released. After years of pushbacks, editing, rewrites, controversy, it releases with an estimated $500 million budget when you include marketing. And it had a $40 million opening over the Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekending, which was even lower than Dumbo. So
which Dumbo? Like the
live action
Dumbo?
the live action recreated Dumbo they made that no one has seen or heard of, it was lower than that. So
dude,
let me ask you, is this Rachel Zegler being potentially the most annoying entitled celebrity ever? Is it a woke rejection because there was a lot of controversy over how they didn't want to use real dwarves, and they were going to, and they actually took a bunch of jobs away from people that
Short
are
people.
undersized. I don't know the right term. That's actually a pretty politically correct term. I feel like I just used undersized.
Well
What's
done.
the right term? I
Yeah.
don't even know. I
Whoa.
just came up with that.
You heard it here first. Sam has gone woke. It's
Undersized.
happened.
That's pretty good. I came
Yeah.
up with that word. Okay, I don't know if that's the right word. Don't get us canceled. But also, no Prince in the movie. Super feminist film. And can we just say it's obvious that Gal Gadot probably was miscast as the queen that is supposed to be less physically attractive than Rachel Zegler. Probably not
Right.
the best casting there. So, what is your opinion on this disaster?
I Whenever I start hearing about Disney live action remakes, I instantly just want to take a nap because
You're
the concept
disinterested.
of them, I'm so disinterested. I find it just like a really boring money grab. I did actually hear from a few people who did go and see it that they actually thoroughly enjoyed it. They thought it stuck to the original very well. Apparently they added a few new songs, which like I just don't care about, but I'm glad that there was something new. Um, yeah, I'm sure that the movie lost some money because of Rachel Zegler's whole deal, but that's not the reason why the movie tanked.
She,
I
well,
think the
she
reason
she
the
was
movie,
on a record breaking disaster PR fest. She has probably 5 or 6 PR decisions that she made that I do believe has bombed this movie. Apparently the lead producer flew across the country and like
oh
verbally
no,
chastised her a few days ago because she was going on like another giant political rant like right before the film released. And he was like,
yeah,
"You are being so childish. This is a $500 million budget that we're using and you're destroying the film by making everything outside the film about yourself."
that might be true, but the fact that that movie is $100 million is still stupid. The fact that they made that movie, I think, is still kind of stupid.
I have
It's one
no
of those
interest
things
in
where,
any
yeah,
live action remakes and I've never seen a single one of them.
yeah, yeah, it's creatively bankrupt. It's even, it can be almost even. There are some live action remakes, or like, did you ever see like Mowgli or when they did the
I have never seen a
Jungle Book
single one
movies?
because, like you, they
Yeah,
literally just disinterest me. I just
yeah,
don't understand why they're being
yeah.
made.
Every so often one does come around where it is a slightly different story. They'll actually, I can't remember who originally wrote the Jungle Book, but they might like go back to the original text and kind of recontextualize it. I think they did something similar with Tarzan a few years ago that I think was mildly successful. And I think that those movies where it's like, yeah, you can tell, these Brothers Grimm stories, for example, can be retold in any number of ways. They can be told in much darker ways. They can be told in a much more fairy tale way, like Walt Disney chooses to do. But at the end of the day, the movies as they stood before were fine, and it's just a money grab. It's a creatively bankrupt move to say, hey, let's just like produce the same thing again, throw in a few songs that like are probably AI generated, and see what sort of cash we can get. It's also the money. The movie also probably bombed just because movies aren't doing super well right now. Like if you look at most of the movies that have been released this first quarter of the year, none of them have done as well as hoped. And I think that that's just become par for the course for Q1 of movies post COVID.
I can agree with that. I will also say though, like websites like Rotten Tomatoes are typically they can prop up Disney films and they sort of have a tendency to do that in the past. They've been accused of potentially even being paid off by certain studios to prop those numbers up.
Yeah.
Even in this case, from a website like Rotten Tomatoes, Disney Snow White is at a 41% and it's rotten, which
Yeah.
is a little alarming. So, uh,
Yeah. If you
uh,
ever want to lose faith in Rotten Tomatoes, just divide the number of positive reviews by the number of total reviews and tell me if that number matches what they have in the tomato meter.
here's what I'll tell you
It almost
something.
never does.
Here,
The
here
math does not math on Rotten
that
Tomatoes.
is conspiracy and well said, Kenny. I'll tell you this: as a huge Christopher Nolan and Dark Knight trilogy fan, I'll never forget a review I read from Rotten Tomatoes. This is when I lost all faith. After The Dark Knight Rises came out, feel how you will about it. It's still a wildly successful and powerful film that did very, very well at the box office. And I remember seeing a Rotten review, and all it said was by a super critic or whatever that has an impact on that score, said this film will make no sense if you haven't seen the first two. I said, all right, well, what are we doing here, people? What are we doing here? Obviously, like, I'm not going to go see Return of the King or Return of the Jedi or Return of insert name here and say this movie
You're not
is
gonna
so
watch Kill Bill
confusing.
Part 2 just by itself?
Right. What's wrong with me? I don't understand Toy Story
You're
3.
psycho, dude.
I don't understand any of these relationships between these characters.
Yeah, why are you crying? Why are you crying when you're just playing with these, like, with this grown man playing with these toys? Why would you care?
Stupid. So that's what we're dealing with on Rotten Tomatoes. I will say, personal opinion before we move on, watching Rachel Zegler talk on the red carpet and just the PR stuff she's done, she really does come off as extremely entitled and super obnoxious. So props to her for that. Let's move on to the other What's News I want to talk about. This is maybe a little bit more serious, but I thought it was worth discussing. So there's a show, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Adolescence. Have you heard of this? Okay.
I have.
So it came out. It's like a 4-part series. It is the most popular show via Netflix ever in the UK through a week, ever.
Wow.
So it's a big deal. The show story is very closely based off of a real life thing that happened where a 13-year-old black migrant stabbed a girl to death on the bus there. They have race swapped the boy to be a 13-year-old white red-pilled young boy, but are telling.
What does that mean?
So it means like they try and make him appear sort of, even though he's 13, like toxic masculinity a little bit, and sort of along those lines.
Is he like Dave Bautista's character in the second Knives Out movie?
Yeah. So imagine like maybe a more 13-year-old
okay,
version of that, of like, I'm going to take what I want. And if I don't get what I want, like I'm going to lash out aggressively. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Here's my question about the whole thing. And the show has an immense popularity now. What is the obligation here, and what sort of scrutiny should come down when we are race swapping for a true story where it's something either positive or negative? Because all of a sudden, this story is the most popular thing in the UK, and what all these people are taking away from this is, oh my gosh, like the alt-right in UK and the way they're raising their kids, or the way these kids are being exposed to things, and this is how they're acting out. When really it was like a migrant black kid who like did this. And so the messaging from what actually happened to what's being portrayed is so different that I'm just curious, like, where do you land on this? Is this okay to do, or is this like really disingenuous to the true story? And Netflix has a history of this, right? They've race swapped a bunch in the past. Probably most famously race swapping Cleopatra, but there's a whole list of ones they've done that they've gotten criticized for. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't know much about the real life story of adolescence. I would say that it kind of boils down to what the actual motivations behind this stabbing were, frankly. If it was one of those, because just because the kid is a black migrant does not exclude him from also being red-pilled, if that's the term we're using. So it's like, well, okay, maybe, but it is also strange. It's something that I think as like content watchers, as people who watch TV and we watch movies, we just got to be careful to not turn our brains off while we're watching these things,
Hmm.
because just because something is based on true events, it doesn't mean that it's a perfectly accurate representation of exactly what happened. It doesn't necessarily, depending on whose perspective the story is told from, which I think that you can tell a very accurate um, retelling of true events, but because that retelling is coming from a certain person's perspective, there's obviously just going to be implicit bias there. That is not the creator's fault. That's not even the person whose story it is fault. That's just the nature of these stories, is there's two sides to every story. So I think that the big thing that we come away with is, hey, just because this is what the TV show is getting at, it does not think about it, right? It's worth thinking about. It's like, hey, how are you raising your kids? What is the actual situation that went down? And even if it is fictional, is it applicable? So I think that would be what I would come away with it, is
Sh-
just
should
don't turn your
we
brains off while watching.
should we just to pile on top of that? Is there, because you said, okay, it's maybe not the creator's fault that they didn't follow it accurately. Should there be an obligation to follow true stories or things that are clearly based on true stories as accurately as possible when it comes to things like race, gender, sexuality, all that sort of thing?
If it's a documentary, for sure. I think we get into this weird realm where we start talking about these fictional adaptations of true stories, that I think the line kind of gets drawn there to where there is journalistic integrity that is required. If you're going to put based off of true events on top of your whatever it is, TV show,
Mm-hmm.
movies,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, like you need to be held to those things. However, again, it's on the audience to be like, am I watching a documentary or am I watching like a fictional TV show? So to me, if it's not labeled as a documentary, then
But you're
take
saying if
everything with
there
a
is
grain of
a hey
salt.
based on a true story, you do place a higher emphasis saying you're a little bit
Oh,
more
for sure.
obligated to, like, if I were to say or see Netflix come out with a documentary on Barack Obama and he was white, right? I think people are
Yeah.
going to get offended, right? And I think that's why some people are
Well, yeah.
offended here is they're like, we feel like our race and maybe a group that wasn't part of a group identity that wasn't part of the actual thing that happened is now being attacked and being used
Yeah.
like politically, basically, as like
Yeah.
propaganda.
Right. And again, it goes back to like, is race an actual central part to that story? In Barack Obama's case, then yeah, like race is a central part
And I
of
think I
his
think that's
story.
what some people are complaining about is they're saying the UK, a lot of people would say, has a massive migrant crisis right now. And that is, I think, part of the story is it's like there's a lot of
Hmm.
displaced migrants there that maybe become desperate
Yeah.
or aren't naturally like mentally healthy based on the situations they've gone through and
Right.
to
Being
ignore.
refugees and trauma and
Yeah,
etc.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like instead of taking that approach, it just feels sort of lazy to say, okay, let's just go with the creepy white kid again, right? Like there's a joke in
Right.
Scream where it's like, okay, every time a new Scream movie comes out, and I love the Scream franchise, but it's like every time it becomes a more diverse cast, but at the end of the day, who is it? Oh, it's the creepy white kid, right? Because we can never pull the trigger on like making someone diverse like a bad person, which I think will change going forward over time. But like, I don't know. This is just food for thought. I think it's interesting for people to
Yeah.
think about, is all.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely worth thinking about, for sure.
Okay. I didn't want to get too heavy before we go into our fun talk. We are going to hit the bulk of our episode now, which is we're going to rank our top 5 Steven Soderbergh films. Now, here's the deal. I went up to 5 people this week who I know like film and TV. I said, do you know who Steven Soderbergh is? Not a single one of them said yes.
Yeah.
But, and when you even mentioned his name to me, I was like, who? But you look at his movies, the dude cranks out movies. He's got like 30 films
Yeah.
that he's directed. Like one a year
Yeah.
at least is bopping out.
Since 2001, he has like 35 movies.
That's
It's
nuts. That's
kind of
nuts.
nuts.
And I think before we get into this, I will say about Steven Soderbergh, and it makes sense with how many movies he makes. There are few that I think would be considered like absolutely great. I think we're going to touch on some really, really good films today. But everything I watch by him, for the most part, I generally enjoy. They're entertaining. And you know what? I think his name deserves more recognition for being a director out there that creates entertaining films in a time where there's either directors making super crappy films, they're making 1 to 2 a year, or there's directors, you know, like Scorsese or Nolan, who are considered like the greatest filmmakers, but they're only making one film every, 2 to 4 years. And so it's nice to have someone who clearly has a talent for directing that can crank out these fun ideas, and not letting them go by the wayside or letting them be directed by someone who doesn't have as much passion as him. So that's what I'll say on Soderbergh as we preface our rankings.
Yeah. One of my buddies, when I told him that I was doing a Soderbergh movie, Josh's response was, Steven Soderbergh is the definition of mid, which is a little inflammatory, but I think that there's something to that, to where, like you said, he's not cranking out perfect fives every single movie. However, none of his movies are like embarrassing.
I would say above mid. I think mid is a little insulting.
I think mid is like very harsh for what he does, for someone who is so prolific, who creates so much. But something I do agree that it's just like he's not like competing for an Oscar every single year.
Even though he has won Best Director.
Yeah, and he has a Best Picture under his belt, and
so like he does have that. He has that there. He's just chosen a different pathway. I would say most of his films fall between, if you're going to rate out of 10, maybe somewhere from like a 6 to an 8, with the occasional below, for sure. But also some gems that are in the 9 and 10 range.
10s.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that for people who aren't familiar with Soderbergh, something that I appreciated more about him as I watched more of his movies over the past 2 weeks is his ideas are, for the most part, original ideas. He's not huge into IP. The Ocean's movies, his most famous movies, are based off of an older movie,
with
Ocean's
Frank Sinatra.
11.
Let's go.
Yeah, with Frank Sinatra. But he is one of the few directors who is just producing new idea movies over and over and over again, and he's very diverse. His movies do not run in the same,
which I love.
Yeah,
and that is such a good point. That's
such
a good point. I was thinking about that yesterday as I was reviewing all these films that I'd watched by him in my head, and I was like, one of the things he does do that maybe Scorsese or Nolan or Wes Anderson don't do is, like you said, he can make any type of film, and he's gonna make it well. Which is really cool, right? Because I do feel like Nolan and those guys, even though they're like the greats, they feel like they're in a box. And it's like, you have to make this style of film one, and it has to be in like this genre. And it's like, you're the best of that. But it's like, you know what would be pretty freaking cool? Like, my dream world is for like Wes Anderson to make a detective mystery thriller, right? But he's never going to do that.
Yeah.
Everyone just stays in their lane. So, again, props to this guy. And go ahead.
Yeah, he clearly works well with people. Out of the 7 movies that I watched of his, I liked all of them to varying degrees, and they're all with there's a few repeats, but there's relatively different cast members.
Dude loves Channing Tatum. Dude loves Channing Tatum. He's in like every film.
He also likes Topher Grace. This feels like the 20th movie I've seen since we started this podcast that has Topher Grace in it.
We are from now on a Topher Grace podcast first.
Yeah. We're actually we are a Topher Grace Venom podcast first.
And Topher Grace was in Interstellar, so he's moving up in the world.
Yeah. But let's dive into.
Okay, sorry. Sorry for the preface. We just think. Don't disrespect this guy. Let's talk about him. Kenny, what is your 5th favorite Soderbergh film?
My 5th favorite of the movies that I watched of his is actually Traffic. Now, might be considered a hot take because Traffic
But it
came out in
won Best Picture,
2001.
right?
Yes, it won
Okay.
Best Picture. He won Best Director for it, I believe. She won Best Actress for this role. So, I but my take on this movie is it is very interesting. So the premise of the movie, for people who haven't seen it, it is about the war on drugs. And a guy gets elected to be the head of the DEA, right? DEA? I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember. The DEA, and he's
DEI.
basically yeah, he's trying to eradicate cocaine from inside the U.S. borders. He's trying to stop the trade that is being propagated by these cartels in Juarez in particular, crossing over the border into California and then like spreading throughout the entire United States. So that's half of the movie, and then the other half of the movie is this guy when he goes home, his daughter is addicted to cocaine.
F.
So yeah, so he has to wrestle Michael Douglas. Sorry, I should specify. Michael Douglas is kind of the main character here. This cast is also stacked. Topher Grace is in it. Michael Douglas is in
If
it.
Topher Grace is in
Dennis,
it, it's being considered for Best Picture.
obviously.
Yes.
Dennis Quaid is in it in a role that I've never actually seen Dennis Quaid in. He just plays this like really sleazy kind of sort of lawyer, kind of sort of henchman. Very interesting. It also has Benicio del Toro
Great
in it.
actor. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's so there's Michael Douglas's character, head of the DEA, the story of his daughter kind of spiraling into addiction, and there's also Benicio del Toro's character of he is a cop in Juarez, and he is not he is a pretty corrupt cop, but he is trying to stop the cocaine trade, and he kind of gets tied into this whole thing. And at the end, the all the storylines
Hey, don't
collide in the
spoiler
end.
it. Oh my gosh, are you about to spoil the entire film? Easy.
Yeah, I mean, I might just spoil the whole thing, but at the end of the day, I think that there was a lot happening in this movie, and yeah, seeing Topher Grace's face again actually is never a positive thing for me, even though he does show up quite a bit in
You
these
see him as
movies.
Venom
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
movies.
he is his sacred role as Venom needs to be respected. Put respect on his name. Um, but yeah, I think the thing that the movie boils down to is the war on drugs is something that is to be fought at home. Michael Douglas has a quote that says, "I don't know how to fight a war against my own family," which I do think is very powerful. But the movie still kind of ends in a more positive light. So at the end of the movie, I just felt some contradicting messages coming through. So that's
Okay.
why it ended up being my number five. But
Okay.
still, good movie.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, I will say because he has like 30 movies in the last 25 years, it's fun because we are going to see some wildly, I feel like, different rankings here, which is
For sure.
great. I love that. And
Hmm.
because that's all we're going to talk about traffic. All right. That's all we're going to talk about traffic. It's not in my top five, so don't even worry about it.
Brutal.
I have a crazy fifth pick here. I don't know if you've seen this movie, but because he has so many movies. But the movie Unsane. Okay?
I haven't seen this one. I didn't get
Unsane.
around to this one.
Saw it in theaters. Here's the cool thing about this film, and this is why Soderbergh, I've actually gained a lot of respect from him. He does a lot of experimentation. This entire movie was shot with an iPhone 7.
Sweet.
An iPhone 7. And it's not found footage. Okay?
Yeah.
So, like, he is using an iPhone 7. I just upgraded from an iPhone 11, and I could barely work with that camera. It was so bad. And this dude's 4 generations before shooting a film that is going into theaters, freaking IMAX theaters
Yeah.
with an iPhone 7. So, super cool. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I would say this film, like so many of his films, at the heart of it, and maybe not as much for Traffic. Traffic is very heavy, I feel like. But for many of his films, entertainment is at the center of it and keeping us into the film from the beginning till the end, even if they're short and sweet. Like, I just watched Kimmy by him. It was only an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And it was a fun little good film. He just keeps things tight,
Yeah.
right? It's like, hey,
He's really good at that.
this is a
The
fun
90-minute
story.
film is where he thrives.
It doesn't need to be 2 hours long. It doesn't need to be as long as a Severance episode, right? He can get a whole thing in to an hour and a half. And Unsane falls into that path. If you liked Kimmy, you'd like something like this. And Unsane is about a woman. Think of this movie as Shutter Island, one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
Light Shutter Island. Okay? This woman is suffering because she had a stalker that was following her around everywhere, and she's trying to deal like, I think the police went after him and he was like never caught and got away or something, but she always feels like she sees him everywhere and it freaks her out. So she goes to this hospital for one reason or another, and she gets there in sort of a strange she's there and she like signs something kind of haphazardly, and in sort of a strange turn of events she's admitted to the hospital and she cannot get out of this basically insane asylum. And while she's there trying to get out, they're giving her pills. She's starting to become delirious, and we feel this transformation. We feel so bad for her. She believes that one of the nurses there, one of the male nurses, is her stalker. And she's now, this person she's been afraid of, she's now locked into a mental institution, believing that he's there and he's one of the people holding her hostage. So
yeah. Have you seen, did you end up watching Contagion?
I haven't yet, unfortunately.
It would, something that I think that he does really well, and I see it a lot in Contagion, and maybe what you're saying, you see it in Unsane, is he does paranoia like very well.
Yes. Like Kimmy, like in Kimmy, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think that he's very good.
That is a really good point, because there's another film I want to talk about that hits paranoia of his super hard. And yeah, just a super entertaining movie. If you haven't seen it, it is streaming somewhere, I'm pretty sure. Definitely worth watching. The performances are really good and satisfying ending like most of his films. I like that he doesn't leave. I feel like with almost all of his films, he wraps them up tightly. And I feel like a lot of directors nowadays, it's very hip to keep things really open-ended or to end something like really dark and disparagingly. And I feel like he does such a good job of just bringing everything full circle. So Unsane is my number 5. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is a movie I actually watched just a few days ago. It is his newest film, Black Bag. So premise of Black Bag is,
surprise it's not your
Michael
number 1.
Fassbender.
The Kenny recency bias.
This week the recency bias did not shine through. I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie. This is another movie that is like a super tight, very neat 90 minutes, which, man, guys, we got to get back to the 90-minute movie.
Who does that?
It's just like, it's so
nice.
Who
does that? That's what makes him so great. Fun. Who does that?
Yeah. It's so good. It's so fun to be like, oh wait, I didn't just lose like 3.5 hours. Seriously, watching it.
Every there's mid movies everywhere that are 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I'm looking at my watch like, are you joking? There's no way.
Yeah, and they all so he does pace really well. This movie is no different. This is Fassbender and Blanchett are a married couple who work for a CIA style agency, and basically there is something was stolen. It's kind of like your classic espionage story where something was stolen that could like kill tens of thousands of people.
Mission Impossible plot number 30.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael Fassbender, his team around him is trying to convince him basically that his wife, Kate Blanchett, is the one who stole it. And so it's kind of both of these couples like stealing things. And the whole idea of the black bag is there's a lot of like interwork relationships in this movie, because it's like, well, we can't date normal people, or we can't like marry normal people because they wouldn't we'd have nothing to talk about.
It's got some Mr. and Mrs. Smith to it, is what you're telling me.
Exactly. It's actually, such a good point. It is so similar to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The biggest difference here, and something that I really liked about the movie, is in this movie, like Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett are so committed to each other, and it's like
Hmm.
they are intentionally juxtaposed
Are you saying Brad
to,
Pitt and Angelina Jolie are not committed to each other on screen or off screen?
yeah, heartbreaking news for those who don't know. They're not
Spoiler
together
alert,
anymore.
Brangelina did not work out in the end.
So devastating.
I've been
But yeah,
devastated for years over this.
I know I can't get over it. But they are intentionally juxtaposed to people who are like unfaithful and dishonest to their partners, but they will literally, like, Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett will literally do anything for each other in this movie. And that's like a theme throughout of what would you do for me? And they kind of talk about, like, and everyone around them is like, how do you guys make this relationship work? And you just
That's what
like
a lot of people
see
say about us, Kenny.
yeah, yeah. It's because we will kill for each other. That's
We
that's why this works. Because we will be able to we would be willing to commit treason for each other.
we would commit treason not only for each other, but more importantly, guys, for the podcast. So
For
we
the
need
pod.
we
We
need
would do
your
it for
support.
content.
We would do it
We
for
would just do it for
content.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds like a fun
Those are
movie. I want to see it.
yeah.
It's like you could describe almost any Soderbergh plot to me, and I want to go see that movie. It's usually
Yeah.
like a little niche and fun. So that sounds like a good time, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be interested. The one thing that my one critique of the movie, and part of this is Fassbender's character is very savant, like he's very smart. He's like a human lie detector, is
Like
kind of,
every
and that's like,
Fassbender character, he has to play like the
yes.
genius.
Right. And Kate Blanchett is just like such a fashion icon in this movie where she's just like I don't know. That like them I do struggle to actually see their chemistry even though they're so committed, just because like Fassbender's doing this very like blank face thing and she is like super into it.
Gotcha.
That's I think it's intentional, but it's something that didn't quite work for me in the film.
Okay, friggin' Fassbender. Get a new personality, am I right? um,
Yeah.
he's been stuck in his Prometheus role for 10 years. Let's grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get back to Magneto.
Yeah, let's get back to Magneto, the good old days. Okay, well, that sounds fun. I'm going to give you my number 4. I'm interested to see if this is on your list, okay? The name of the
Yeah.
movie, if this interests you, Channing Tatum is in this movie. That could be any of his films. Daniel
Where are you
Craig
going with it?
is in this movie, okay? And
Oh, yes.
your favorite, Kylo Ren, Adam
Adam
Driver,
Driver, baby.
is in this movie.
I do love Adam Driver.
Okay,
I
so
love this movie. Logan Lucky is great.
This is my 4th favorite, is Logan Lucky. And it is, Soderbergh is most famous for the Ocean's films, right? Anyone I talked to who looked him up was like, oh, he did the Ocean's films. Of course, the Ocean's films are great. Except for 12. Anyways.
We won't talk about it.
We won't
today,
talk
I don't
about,
think.
yeah, we're not going to even give that movie the breath of day. It needs to die a death somewhere. But imagine Logan Lucky as his maybe weird successor to Ocean's 11, where it's a redneck comedy heist. And it's these kind of 3, I don't want to call them idiots, but they're
totally like hillbilly.
Yeah,
redneck,
just super
like,
hillbilly
yeah.
that are dumb enough to try something that could work, which makes the movie fun.
Yeah.
And like Daniel Craig is so funny in the movie. Everyone in the movie, like the main 3 actors, are absolutely hysterical. And they're basically trying to pull off a heist at a NASCAR speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina. Oh my gosh. If that doesn't get you amped, like if you love heist movies like I do, I'm obsessed with heist movies. But guess what? Heist movies are virtually never, ever, ever funny. The Ocean's movies, you could say, are extremely charming. This
And
movie
witty, yeah.
Yeah, and witty. This movie leans funny and witty, but in a completely different way. So
Yeah.
I won't spend too long on it, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. It is streaming, I believe, right now on a handful of services. So if you haven't seen Logan Lucky, just so enjoyable, worth rewatching if you've seen it as well. So love that movie.
Yeah.
That's my number 4.
Yeah, it was my first out. It was my number six that I watched. I love
Oh
this
no, it didn't
movie.
make
The
the top
first,
five.
oh, it's but
That's
it is
crazy.
truly so so good. I did rewatch it. I really do enjoy it. My first experience with Logan Lucky is I watched this movie in theaters, and I was I wasn't intentionally going to go and watch it. I was actually planning on spending the night in a parking lot, hoping to win free pizza for a semester.
Okay,
So,
what are we talking about here? Who promised you free pizza for a semester? And how did you end up in a
this
movie theater as a result of this?
this new restaurant in Laramie was saying, "Hey, you'll get free pizza if you're the first 100 people." So me and a bunch of buddies were like, "Oh man, everyone's gonna want to get free pizza for this semester." So we all stayed there and we were hanging out in the parking lot, and we weren't allowed to leave the parking lot, but we got, pretty bored. And so in the same parking lot was a movie theater, and we go over and say, "Oh, what's playing?" It's like, "Oh, Logan Lucky. Wait, what? What's happening? Why does this was our first delve into Daniel Craig having a Southern accent. This is the
Yes,
first
good
time we
point.
saw it
Good point.
pre the Knives Out movies.
It was
And
weird,
you're
but
right, this
funny.
movie, yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like it's literally a high octane film, and it is his funniest. I mean, I haven't seen all 35 of his films, so maybe I can't state
Yeah,
this.
I
Out of
would
the movies
say
I've seen,
probably,
it is
right?
his funniest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, too bad. I guess you just hate Kylo Ren and your bias rolled into this film and it got knocked out of your top five.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What is your third favorite?
My third favorite is Ocean's 13.
Me too. I can't even
Yes.
believe you have Ocean's 13 in here. I guess why don't you say your piece and then I will
Yes.
launch into this movie.
Yeah. So this movie is
So
not
happy.
literally, but metaphorically a bank robbery. They're going back, the Ocean's crew are going back to their roots. They're going back to Las Vegas, and it's a revenge film. They're trying to take revenge on the person who put one of their buddies, Ruben, pretty much in a coma
Al
in like deep,
Pacino
deep
plays a
depression.
great jerk bad guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he plays Willie Banks,
Willie
and
Banks.
he names his hotel the bank. Can you break the bank? And so
Mm.
really funny to kind of think of it as a bank heist. There's a lot of similar things. It really does go back to its roots. This movie also is quite funny. I think I see a lot of Soderbergh's senses of humor here, specifically in like the Mexican Revolution plot line,
Yes,
where
very
it's just
funny.
like so unnecessary and
So
strange, but like
unnecessary.
the Mormon twins are just hamming it up and having the world's best time. One thing I didn't like about the movie is this movie has AI in it. It's just like one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, yes, they have like the biggest vault in the world, and like
Oh,
everyone's being
that's
tracked
right.
by
Yeah.
AI,
Okay.
and
That's what you mean by that.
like
Okay, got
the
it.
yeah, to make sure that all the wins are genuine or whatever. But yeah,
Right.
Al Pacino, like it's Al Pacino is the best. Willie Banks
This,
is the best
this
villain in the trilogy.
very, very true. The thing about AI I'll say really quick is like this so far before any AI stuff
Oh
that it
yeah,
was actually
yeah.
like a fun introduction into the film and a fun thing for them to try and break and get around in a really clever way.
True. Yeah, I think I'm just like jaded at this point because
Of
AI
course.
has become the new like electromagnetic pulse. Where
Of
like in the
course.
early 2000s you could hardly go through a movie without someone explaining to you what an EMP was. So
Right.
that's how I feel about it. I'm just jaded, I guess.
It seems like you are. What right, of course. Like, the final Mission Impossible part one, part two. Oh, who's the bad guy? It's AI. Like everything is AI nowadays, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Megan is the horror movie. AI. Everything that comes out is AI oriented. But this was way before that. So like give this movie
Yeah.
props. Okay, I'm gonna launch in about this movie really quick. I have
Yeah.
probably seen this film more than Ocean's 11, and I've seen them both a lot.
Yeah.
I've probably seen this film maybe half a dozen times, and I love it every single time I watch it. Like you said,
Yes.
it is back to the roots. Ocean's 12 was a complete dumpster fire, and it was so cool to see Soderbergh take a step back and say, maybe that was a misstep. And Ocean's 11, everything that worked in it, let's make it work one more time. And let's make it feel fresh. And it feels so fresh, just like Ocean's 11 does. All the conversations are amazing, genuine, so charming, so witty. this cast he got together, the ensemble is the chemistry is so good between all
Yeah.
of them, and he works it so well in all the dialogue between them. So, oh, it is
Agreed.
just such a fun film. And
Yeah.
if you love films that take place in Vegas like I do, it's one of the best. It just has Vegas vibes, top to bottom. You're draped in it. It's the final film in this trilogy that we get. You know, we might not ever see this cast together again. Ocean's 8 wasn't directed by him, and it was a disaster, you know, woke
I
spin-off
liked
gender
it.
swapping. Well, I'm sure you did. Gender swapping spin-off, IP destruction, not by the actual director. So yeah, naturally, Kenny liked the film. No, just kidding. But I can't say enough about Ocean's 13. I think it's one of the, if we were to have a segment that was underrated films, it has got to be one of the
Yeah.
most underrated films while being one of the most entertaining films in film history. I don't even care.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you're absolutely right. And this is a credit to all of the Ocean's movies where there's not a single person in the Ocean's crew that's a blank slate. Each
Yes.
one of them, like their character has been so like their backstory has been so well developed, their character, their mannerisms is so well developed. It's just even like from Livingston to Lioness to the Mormon twins that
Yep.
even though they kind of go together, it's just they're all so unique and interesting, and I really love that about this movie.
And I think there's a lot of films, kind of like one that comes to mind is like Lucky Number 11. There's a lot of films like that that are kind of okay, we're going to throw a crazy ensemble cast together and maybe they're working against each other or with each other. And there's a lot of times it's just messy and doesn't work out and the characters aren't memorable, and that's just the complete opposite here. So
Right.
so glad you had that there. And that I will say that film was almost my number two, and I could put it at my number two, but I felt, and maybe I even want to a little bit, like
Hmm.
I was almost going for diversity in my top three too, and that's why I made the
Yes.
swap. But consider that that movie could be my number two. So, what is your number two?
Interesting. My number two is a film called Aaron Brockovich. I was first introduced to this film by my sister-in-law, and at the time, I thought she was talking about like Aaron Brockovich just sounded like a name of, some Iowa kid who played the tight end for Kansas State University and then went and played for the Steelers. So I thought she was talking football. Turns
Very
out
true.
she's talking about quite a fantastic movie. Is this movie on your list?
It's not, but I really, really like it. And it's a really, really
Yeah.
good movie. And I don't know anyone who could watch this movie and not enjoy this movie. It's like a
Yeah.
legal battle film,
Hmm.
but it's based on a true story, which is awesome. Not to hijack the plot
Yeah.
from you here, Kenny, but also I think a lot of and you know how unwoke I am, but I will say a lot of if you're a woman and you watch this film, I think you're gonna connect with Julia Roberts. She's like at her peak here when she's like at the height of
Yeah.
her stardom. She plays
This is
such
my
a fan.
favorite of her roles.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
plays such a fantastic role. To know it's based on a true story where it's like someone who basically like came from nothing and helped in this massive legal case and help all these people who were basically being poisoned from like a
Hmm.
nearby company factory type thing. Really, really enjoyable film. So continue
Yeah.
on.
If there was a film canon of movies that stuck it to the man, this
Mhm,
movie would be
yes.
so high up there. This
Oh,
movie is literally about sticking it to the man, and it's so fun. It's so good. Julia Roberts is an absolute firecracker in this movie. There's this
that
scene
is
where
the perfect
she's not
word.
an actual.
Firecracker.
Yeah. And she just is. She's so dynamic. She's so good. There's a scene where the case eventually is so successful that it gets taken over by another lawyer firm. And part of the story is she didn't go to college. She doesn't have a law degree, but she's working for kind of out of blackmail or out of coercion. She's
Yes.
working for this other law firm. And this guy, really has a heart for her and he sees that she has a lot of talent. But she can be a bit of a handful, I think, for him. But eventually the case gets taken over by these lawyers, and they're trying to basically like arm her out of the situation. And she just goes off, and she starts listing like not all 285 applicants to the case, but she knows everything about all these people. She knows all of the information. She just shows like, hey, I'm the one who's supposed to be here. I'm the one who gathered all this information. I'm the one who knows these people, and I know what they deserve. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a
And
definitely in like must watch category over time, just for film, because it's so popular.
yeah, and it is definitely there's lots of interesting like themes and motifs through the movie. There's a scene in the movie where she ends up dating Aaron Eckhart, which is very interesting. Aaron Eckhart plays this guy George, who is
for people who don't know, that's
subverting
Two-Face.
Yeah, Two-Face. And so it's just very interesting to watch him kind of subvert the expectation of the bike rider. But anyway, she gives this monologue about how she won Miss Wichita when she was a kid, and how her dream was to like bring peace to the world and like help the hungry and like dig wells and all that sort of stuff. And that's in the middle of the movie, and you just see her kind of fulfilling that dream of her helping people through this case. Like it all comes full circle to where it's like, you did it. Eventually your speech in your Miss Wichita competition has like come true. And it's a really good film.
And Aaron Eckhart's awesome in the film too. And you know, when I first saw him, I got a little freaked out. I was like, no, you don't know. That's what he will become in Batman. But it was pre-Batman, so he was still a good guy.
And the first, it's also like a movie about single moms too.
Yeah,
and I think that's obviously very important. Like there's the first courtroom scene, like after her traffic accident, just encapsulates that so well, where her case is totally solid, but the jury has totally turned against her because she's been divorced twice.
Right.
She doesn't have a job when the other person hit, and like the person who hit her was a pediatric surgeon, and it just kind of sets up this power dynamic of, hey, wait, why should I trust you instead of this like corporation that like has done so much for us? Like they sent us to the doctor, they paid our medical bills, like all of these things. And it's like, no, actually the subversion there is like, you should have trusted the single mom who didn't have a law degree to help you out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Really, really cool. And I think like I mentioned, just a great, and like you said, a great female empowerment film. Without being corny, it feels like realistic. It feels gritty. It's cool. I like it. Yeah. All right, I'm changing my mind. Ocean's 13 is going to be my number 2, solidified.
Whoa.
But
all right, number 3 then.
Okay, so my technical number 3 is the film Side Effects.
It's another one I didn't see.
Oh my gosh, it's so good, and it's stuck with me for so long. Channing Tatum, obviously.
Of course. Magic Mike himself.
Yes. Rooney Mara, when she's at her peak, and she's a great actress, but like this is around her Girl with the Dragon Tattoo days, around those years, as well as Jude Law, who is just so lovely and charming in this film.
So handsome.
It is streaming, I believe, in a few places. So if you haven't seen this film, it is so worth watching. I had a friend who asked what we're doing this week so he could get ready to prep for the podcast, which was awesome. He's got to be like our number 1 fan if he's doing that. So super cool of him, even though he refused to watch anything outside of Snowpiercer because he says he does not watch any films that have subtitles. So, you know, you got to take the good with the bad.
Shameful.
Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad. But he watched this film and gave it like an 8.3, which for him is like a 10 because he's hypercritical about everything. The film is about Rooney Mara and Channing Tatum, and they're this couple and they're super wealthy, and Channing Tatum is in this like company, but he gets busted for insider trading. And so he has to go to prison for a long time. And he gets out, and basically they reconnect, and they don't really have anything anymore, but he's like, babe, trust me, I'm going to get it all back. I've thought about it. It's already done. I got to work hard and start from the bottom again, but I got there once, I'm going to get there again. And she loves him and is like, okay, great. she has gone through a bunch of stuff since this happened, and she's on all these like drugs and pills. And so
Hmm.
she ends up making a phone call to the police, and she's panicking, and she's like, someone has stabbed my husband in my kitchen, and he's like bleeding out and he's dying, and I don't know what's going on. And they arrive, and they're basically like, everything shows that you did this. And she's like, I have no memory of doing this. I've been taking these drugs, and I legitimately have no clue. And so it's sort of this mysterious noir film, almost from these different perspectives. And Jude Law is the person who prescribes her these pills, and so he's sort of
Oh, interesting.
wrapped into it as well. And it turns into this whole thing of like, did she or did she not kill her husband? And if she did, was it because of the side effects of these drugs or not? And it is that, but with just these deep layers where there is some 4D chess being played by characters, and
Oh.
is so satisfying and so good, so well shot. If you haven't seen this film, outside of the Ocean's films, you have to go watch this movie. It is so freaking good. So, side
You've
effects.
convinced me.
I'm almost convincing myself to put it back at my number two. But no. It'll be my number three, just because the rewatchability of Ocean's 13 is so
Yeah.
high that that's the
Yeah.
only reason I would drop down Side Effects, even though I would, in a heartbeat, rewatch Side Effects. So please go watch the film if you haven't. We move on to the crown jewel. What is Steven Soderbergh's best film, Kenny, in your mind? Oh, it's obvious, I guess.
It's
Right?
Ocean's
It's
11.
Ocean's 11. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Ocean's
it's
11.
like we were just going to where we were gonna meet at the top, I think,
Very
of this
true.
mountain.
Yes.
So Ocean's 11, for those of you who haven't seen it, is about this guy, Danny Ocean, played by George Clooney. Just man, George Clooney at just like the peak of his Silver Fox era.
Oh,
Like
hell
he
yeah.
just exudes like masculinity to be like,
Absolutely.
man, I want to be George Clooney so
It
badly
really, and not a
in this
knock,
movie.
not a knock on Timothy Chalamet, but like he's at the peak right now. Like him and Tom Holland, kind of these soy boy looking dudes, are like at the peak of like masculinity, quote unquote, in Hollywood and what girls are into. And that was like, I think, the golden age of Hollywood when George Clooney was there. And it's like this, like you said, Silver Fox had just like women, not girls or teens, like drenched because he was so freaking charming and handsome. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
So
Also,
yes,
Brad
this
Pitt at his
incredibly.
peak too.
Oh yeah, and Brad Pitt is just wearing like silks, and he's like there. It's just incredible. But the Danny Ocean, an ex-con, is getting out of a 2-year stint in prison, and he's a con man. He's a master thief, and he says the first thing he does when he gets out of prison is he's going to rob. He's going to be the first person to rob a Las Vegas casino. So what does he do? He goes around. He gathers his old crew.
Matt
That
Damon.
includes, yeah, well, Matt Damon is actually a new add to
Yes.
his
Which
crew,
makes
right?
it so
Because he
much
had worked
fun.
with his dad.
Yes. Who
George
we
Clooney had
see
worked
in
with Matt
Ocean's
Damon's dad.
13. Spoiler.
Yeah. But he gets with Rusty, played by Brad Pitt, who is just an absolute fiend. Like he has to be coming off of a crazy high every single time because he's just like eating the entire time in this movie. He just
Yeah.
has the munchies like no one's
Yeah. And I,
business.
I read that he said specifically for this role, he always wanted to be eating something. So I was like, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's just funny.
Because it plays so cool. Everyone in this
It is
movie
freaking cool.
talking Yeah, talking about canons, like we were talking about canons of movies that you stick it to the man. This movie is at almost the very top. Like it's with Top Gun in the canon of dudes rocking,
Is
to where
this is
every
this
dude in this movie rocks.
is this the coolest movie ever made? I'm just gonna throw that out there. Is this the coolest movie ever made?
Dude, it's up there. I mean, there's some astronaut movies that I really like that definitely kind of get me going, or like Iron Man is up there where he's building the suit as holy cow, this is the coolest person I've ever seen in my entire
But
life.
I think going beyond, we'll say Iron Man is like Iron Man is like, okay, it's Tony Stark, it's Robert Downey Jr. He's the pulse of
Yeah.
everything. This is like if you could do one thing ever with your boys, like
Yeah.
you wanna rob a Las Vegas casino and everyone has a unique talent and skill to make it work. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's anything cooler than that. It's like when you were, 10 years old and you're like, guys, here's the map of the neighborhood. We are
Yeah.
going to ding dong ditch this house. You are the smallest kid. You're going to go underneath the fence and then you're going to unlock
Yeah.
it for us. Okay. Then the barking dog over here, your dad owns a meat factory. So you're going to steal some prime rib from his refrigerator and throw that to the dog. Once the dog is
Yeah.
out, then we have to take care of the maid. The maid has a daughter who plays soccer. And anyways, I'm going off on
Yeah.
my own movie rant
It's
here, but anyways,
it's
so cool.
all about connections, but you're right. It is all these dudes who are operating at the height of their powers in the movie. And that is like peak dudedom.
Ugh.
It's so cool. They're all incredibly well dressed. They're all gentlemen too. Like
Yes, great
there's like this
point.
code that they have. They talk about it in Ocean's 13, where like one of the main reasons they all go after him is like, you shook Sinatra's hand. You should know
Dang.
better because you
And
shook Sinatra's hand.
and the original film had Frank Sinatra in it, so what a cool full circle.
Right, right. But Ocean's 11 is great. Terry Benedict is, man, like he's also a fantastic villain.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not,
great.
I think Willie Banks is better, but like that like slick back look and you
Oh
just like,
yeah,
I
he's
know
great.
everything that goes on in my casino.
Ocean 12,
And the big
disaster. Ocean's 11, great.
Yeah, but the big twist, right, in the movie is we find out that Danny Ocean's not in it for the money. He's in it for the girl. He's trying to get his wife, Julia Roberts, back from the villain. And it almost makes the entire operation implode because Rusty is like, "Hey, if it's about her, I'm gonna walk." And he's like, "It's not all about her, but yeah, I'm here to get her back. If there's only one thing I do, it's George Clooney wants to get Julia Roberts back, and
And if he
man,
happens to
if I was
humiliate
women,
him and take a bunch of money, even better.
oh, so good. And okay, does this movie have the best montage period of all time?
Are you?
Specifically when they're setting up the heist. There's like 20 minutes where they're building the scaffolding, they're
Yeah,
getting
and
the
I don't think I will say this. A lot of people haven't seen this film, which is weird to me. I'm hoping most of our listeners will have seen this film, but I asked my
Mhm.
high school girls team the other day if anyone. I was like, "Oh, have you guys heard of this movie?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" They didn't even know what it was, and so I'm like,
That's
"It's a
insane.
movie you don't even want spoiled for you because the ending's so good." And
Yeah.
but yeah, amazing montage. The way he films this is like almost like Guy Ritchie style where it moves kind of fast,
Totally.
but like
Yeah.
so freaking snappy and fun. And
It's
you're
zippy
like,
for
yeah,
sure.
it's so
Yeah,
zippy, and
yeah.
you're like, you don't miss a beat, even though the movie is one step ahead of you the entire time, which is what makes it so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. The only ding, there's only one possible ding against this movie, and it's when they talk about the EMP. It's where they explain what an EMP is.
Oh, well, Kenny,
Yeah,
you're a nerd,
I
so
know.
no one cares about that.
Listen, but we all watch movies from the 2000s. Like every single movie didn't need to explain to me what an EMP did, you know?
But at least they
Anyway.
do it in the fast, snappy, cool way.
Oh,
They
yeah,
always
yeah,
go fast and snappy with that stuff. Everything is
yeah.
like so much of their dialogue is like code worded, like you said. It's like, oh, we're
Oh, yeah,
gentlemen, there's a code, and it's like the way they speak is like
yeah,
I maybe
yeah.
don't fully understand exactly what you mean, but I understand it through the words you're saying.
Right.
And that's pretty freaking cool.
It's super cool. Where he's like, "We're in Barney Rubble, trouble." It's like, oh
It's
yes,
so
that's like
good.
so well delivered.
I need to go watch this movie right now because it's so good. I need to go recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it because it's so good.
Yeah.
Anyways,
All
so
right. Should
that's
we
our
go
okay.
through our ranking?
So my top five, I had Unsane on there as 5. Logan Lucky is 4. Side Effects is 3. Ocean's 13 is 2, and Ocean's 11 is 1.
Yeah. And my number 5 is Traffic. My number 4 is Black Bag. My number 3 is Ocean's 13. My number 2 is Aaron Brockovich, and my number 1 is Ocean's 11.
Beautiful. That was actually super fun. If you have made it this far in the video, please drop a like and a sub if you haven't already. And of course, our favorite thing is comments. We interact with the comments a ton. We'll respond to you on YouTube. And if you have a question or an insightful comment, we will bump it to the front of our next episode and we will talk about it there. So definitely leave a comment if you made it this far. We're going to possibly be getting 2 episodes out next week. We will see. It depends if that's what the people want. And regardless, it might be what they get. So until next time, loyal and intimate fan base, this is Sam and Kenny signing off.